and this workshop is for the storytelling in art form. It is not a new name. It has been a source of transferring of past incidents that were happened for more over this over the time, from the history it has been continued. So I would like to introduce our special guest, Mrs. Anupama Garg, for this session. She is a content creator and a storyteller. Hello, ma'am. I welcome you to the this is Speak Up session. Ma'am, tell me something about this session and present yourself. Present this session for next.
Thank you, Anand. Hi, everybody. So first things first, I am not Mrs. Anupama. I am just prefer calling me Anupama is good enough. But that said, thanks for having me today. How I've framed today's session is I've kept my portions small. I've kept more time for the Q&A. I'm assuming this is for 1 hour. Is that correct, Anand? Or do we have, how much time do we have?
Yeah, ma'am, we have 1 hour. Ma'am, we can extend it also, ma'am, if you can.
So I prepared it with primarily with the thought that we were going to do it for 1 hour. So I've like kept 15 minutes where I will tell you in brief what I know about storytelling and how I landed into the field and what I did with it. And then I'll open the floor for your questions and whatever questions you keep asking. I think Q&A is going to be a better way of doing the session. Now, also, Anand, quick question. If I have to, because this is the first time I'm using Microsoft Teams. So if I ask a question and if somebody wants to respond, how do they do it? Do they do it in the chat or
Yeah, ma'am, they can
do
both
they
answer,
speak?
ma'am, like one option of hand raising, ma'am. So they can hand raise also, so we can understand that who want to talk or not. And they
Okay,
also use chat box for that.
lovely. So, so anybody who might want to share their thoughts about what you think is storytelling. I will begin with that. I will wait for like 30 seconds for you guys to put in some answers, and then I will share with you how I discovered storytelling. Does anybody want to put their answers? What do you think storytelling is all about, and why do we do it? What is the whole objective? Why are we even having this session? Any thoughts, anybody?
Ma'am, storytelling is something like expressing our ideas and thoughts in a such a way that the listener or the one who gets from us understands in a better way. Like it is not like normal telling or saying. They have some benefit from it. They are in a mode of listening.
Okay. And who do you think was the first storyteller in your life? I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but whoever's responding to the question right now, who do you think was the first storyteller in your life?
My grandmother, ma'am.
Okay. So all of us, I think, know the answer to that question. Our grandparents have been the people to tell us. In most cases, our grandparents have been the people to tell us the first stories of our lives. In some cases, it's been the parents. Let me put how I understand storytelling. The way I look at storytelling is it is a message laced in an interesting way. There has to be a message and there has to be a style and a flair to that message. So a lot of times what happens is when people who are preparing for CAT and GMAT and other exams like that, they come and ask, ma'am, what should we read? And my response is you should read fiction because it gives you the style, and you should read non-fiction because it gives you the content, it gives you the meat that you actually want to express, the pointers that you might want to put out, or the data or the references. And that is my approach to storytelling. I'm sure a lot of people have different. So the first thing we want to understand is this is a combination of an art. This is an art which is now being slowly and gradually perfected to be a science, because advertising people have been using it for ages, marketing people have started using it left, right, and center, and it's become a buzzword. But primarily you need to have both. You need to have hardcore data, facts, or the message that you want to convey, and you need to convey it in a manner that it's interesting, that it makes the listener or the reader feel like they've been moved, they've been um, emotionally impacted by it. It is something that impacts their life. There has to there has to be that strong emotive component to it. Now, how I discovered storytelling. So I was an avid reader, and I used to write poetry. I wasn't into blogging or fiction writing or any of that. And I was almost 30. I was walking with my mentor, and I discovered that one of my batchmates, somebody that I'd done a short creative writing course with, had published their own book. And I broke down. I was in a very bad phase in my life at that point. Everything was, it was in a mayhem. And I just broke down and I said, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. And that's when my mentor asked me, what is it that you want to do in your life? And I said, I want to write. And he said, so why don't you write? And I said, um, I don't know what to write. And he was like, but you've been writing poetry for years. Why don't you know what to write? And I said, who's going to read me and how am I going to publish? And I had like these 1,000 questions. And he was like, your first job is to write. And I said, what? Okay, fine, got it. What do I write about? He said, write about yourself, write about your life, write about whatever comes to your mind. So that's the second thing I discovered. That was my second lesson in storytelling. That the key to telling a great story is to start telling stories. You may not have great stories to tell day one. You may not be great at telling stories when you begin, but if you never begin, then you never get to tell great stories. Great stories don't happen overnight. You got to develop an eye. It's an art you have to practice. It's a science. You have to master it. But you can't do it unless you take the first step. So anybody who thinks, oh my God, I can't be a great storyteller because I don't know how to write. I call it, I'm not going to say it online, but I'm going to just type it for your references. I call it this. So if you tell me that you don't know how to write stories, BS. If you tell me, oh, I've never written one, BS. There's always going to be a first day. There's always going to be a first story that you're going to tell. So that's the second lesson that I discovered. When I wrote my first book, it was 2 months after this conversation I had with my mentor. And the books were in a very non mainstream niche. I was writing about sexuality. I was writing a work of non-fiction, and I did not want it to be too academic because I wanted people to read it and take whatever they would want to take from it in terms of learning. And at that time, there were not many women writing openly from their own personal lives. So I also wanted to remain anonymous enough to not be identified with my work. And yet I wanted it to be meaningful. So the third lesson that I discovered for myself during this whole journey of like a decade and a half now was that you have to figure out your voice, your own core as a writer, as a person. More than as a writer or as a storyteller, you have to figure that out as a person. And my core was revolving around authenticity. There are some people whose core revolves around creativity. There are other people whose core revolves around factual accuracy. There are some people who will write in a manner where you will say, oh my God, this is logically brilliant. There'll be others who will work a lot on their plot and their character. I was a person who wanted to work on, am I writing this authentically enough? Is this going to feel, the person who reads this work, will they feel that this person, as me, has been honest with them? That is what I was focusing on. So the third thing I discovered was the voice. Your stories eventually over time have to reach a point where you listen to the story, where somebody reads a story or watches it or listens to the script and says, Anand is the author or Anupama is the author. Like, your story and you should become inseparable in the sense that people should read it and they should be able to discover that it's your work. And that is called as a writer's voice in the writing parameters. I'm sorry, I'm taking more examples of writing because that's the domain that I have an expertise in. I do write for visuals and graphics and all, but I don't do that actively. So my examples are going to be more writing centric, but you're welcome to ask from other domains once you start asking questions. So that was my third lesson, that you've got to figure a voice of your own. And that voice is going to be very unique to every storyteller. And the last thing that I want to tell you is that ultimately it doesn't matter whether somebody reads your stories or not. There is something called as consistency. If you're not consistent, you can be a one-time great storyteller and you can sit on it, because the world has really changed. No longer it is about मैं एक masterpiece लिखूंगा और champ बन जाऊंगा. It is about I have to produce a masterpiece and then I have to keep producing it over time, repeatedly, again and again and again. So you will have to find your own magic formula and perfect those magic formula. You will have to craft your own, figure out your own domain, create your own niche, because everybody is now writing about, everybody is writing about politics, everybody is writing about religion, everybody is writing about science and technology. Figure out what is it that is unique to you, what is that perspective that you bring to the story which nobody else will, or which very few people will, and that will become your differentiator. That's like in a very, if you want to take it up as a profession, or if you want to take it up as a part of your marketing skills or communication skills. So you have to figure that independent perspective, and that will make your story unique. And of course, the usual goes without saying. आपको आपका target group पता होना चाहिए. You should know who's going to read it. You should know why you're writing it. What's the message that you want to send? How do you want to send it? And your language and your flair will change accordingly. Last thing, please read a lot, because you don't have to copy, you don't have to read because I want to write like Amrita Pritam, so I'm going to read Amrita Pritam. No, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to read because that will tell you what shoddy work is. So if I don't like author A, then I know that I don't want to write like author A. I don't want to write like he or she writes. So I know what to avoid. You may not know necessarily what to do, but if you know 10,000 things that you shouldn't do, that's still good enough. That's pretty much what I have to say. I'm opening the floor for questions, people. I know it's probably coming a little bit of a shocker. Oh my God, what just happened? We didn't get told a brilliant story, but I promise to give you stories in your answers. So go ahead, ask your questions.
Yeah, anybody have any question can ask me by raising hand. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Rakesh, you can.
Achita, go ahead.
Ma'am, sometimes when I feel to write, I stop because of the language, ma'am. Because when I in novels and all these things, they have very great language, but I don't have. What role does the language play?
So my suggestion to anybody who's wanting to write and who's not habitual of writing, or who hasn't been writing for long, is that you write in a language that you feel comfortable. So for instance, my first set of works was in Hindi. Despite the fact that English was still my primary language of education, my exposure to English literature was limited. My exposure to Hindi literature and language was better. So I started writing with Hindi, and then I started gradually translating some of my work. English writing happened when I stepped into it professionally. So that's one, that you write, you begin with writing in the language that you're comfortable with. Two, what you're asking is actually a question of language and linguistics rather than storytelling per se. What role does language have? Language certainly has an important role, because unless your language is impactful, it's not going to cause, it's not going to stir your reader. But to be able to reach there, when you say that when I read novels, the language is very fancy, my question is, what words do you pick up? What nuances do you pick up? What colloquial usage do you pick up? That is entirely a learning process. And that varies from people to people. Some people have a knack for languages, they pick it up faster. Some people pick it up slower. The key is, like I said, consistency. So look up, so how I would do it if I were you, I would keep three things handy. One is good literature. When I say good literature, I'm not saying necessarily classics, but I'm also not saying pulp fiction. I'm saying keep a diverse set of books, read a diverse set of books. So I will read business literature, I will read literature on economics, I will read literature on sports, I will also read self-help. Why? Because that expands my vocabulary across domains. So that's the first bit. The second bit is keep a good dictionary handy, keep a good thesaurus handy, and I'm sure you guys know all these Word Power Made Easy and books like those, which will help you sort of begin initially. Eventually, you will have to start writing. A good editor helps. If you can sort of form a club amongst yourselves, edit each other's work, look at, sometimes the kind of exercises I do with my peers and friends in the industry is we will take a theme, all of us would write something on it, and we will pass on our work to each other for evaluation. And that gives me a lot more ideas and a lot more linguistic nuances than I would probably get if I were to write on my own. So maybe that is also a thing that you guys can try amongst yourselves, especially because you are already a part of the student community. So maybe that's what you want to look at. So these are a few things that I can suggest in terms of language. Okay, next question.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I wanted.
I don't know what your name is because I can't see it.
My name is Arunab Gupta.
Hi, tell me.
My question was that whenever I'm reading some books, I'm getting bored of it like 2 3 days after, and then switch to another book. So my question was that is it okay to read more than three books at the same time, switching from one another if you are getting bored of it at one
So,
time?
Arunam, at any given point, I read 10 books parallelly. It's absolutely okay. Different people have different reading styles, different people have different attention spans. If you are a person who gets bored with reading longer books, please pick up a $5 per month Medium subscription and maybe read longer articles there. Those are 2000 word articles. They are good enough to be a book chapter, but it's not the entire book. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it is what you're already doing, picking up 2 or 3 books and sort of switching between the books while you're reading that. That's also fine. The third way to do it is one of the things that really works when it comes to reading or writing as a habit is set a timeline. Like when I pick up books, especially books that I need to read rather than I want to read, my timeline is okay, here is this book I'm reading. This is a 500-page book. My general average reading speed is 20 pages an hour because it's a non-fiction book. So I am going to take 25 hours, which means if I spread it 5 hours a day, I'm going to finish this over a week. That's how I reverse calculate things for myself. So this is something that works for me, especially when I want to work on specific books and when I want to sort of, pick something specific. When I'm reading for enjoyment, of course, it's enjoyment, so it is fine. What you can also do is start with reading shorter works if you get distracted easily. When I say shorter works, I'm not talking of articles, I'm talking of ebooks, which will be something like a 30 to 60 pager. Now, a 30 to 60 pager, finishing it off in 2 days is not a big deal. Even if you get worked up, even if you get bored, it's all right because you've already finished the book. So these are a few things that you can probably use for if you get bored with reading. But only request is that keep it diverse enough so that you can find. Also, guys, diversity, works in the sense that, say, suppose I was writing a piece about hospital management, right? Now, if it's only hospital management that I read about, I will be writing a fine piece most likely, but it wouldn't be creative enough. But if I could say that hospital management at this point looks like the Japanese kintsugi, because it's broken and yet the effort that the frontline warriors are putting into it looks like a jar that's been broken and filled with gold. So people are gold right now, like the healthcare staff is gold right now. Now that to a reader will feel like, oh my God, what did she just say? Instead of saying, oh, you know what, our doctors are making a lot of effort and our nurses are really fighting it out and everybody on the healthcare front is really doing their bit. Now, factually, I'm saying both the things are the same things. I'm saying the same thing. But if I know what a Japanese kintsugi is, then I'll be able to put in a creative element into it. So, which is why I'm repeatedly saying that try and read as much as you can. Wikipedia is a good resource in that sense. It may not be a very reliable resource in the understanding, like in the factual accuracy sense of it, but it is still a good resource in the sense that it will help you give a lot of ideas that you can interconnect. So that's That's my answer to this question. And some additional inputs. What's the next question?
Yeah, ma'am. Like we see many documentaries have like very good like online. They are very easily available. So documentary are they help in the storytelling because they uh, show many true stories in a good way that anyone can see and understand. Like what is the whole timeline that was going on at that period. Uh, yes, ma'am. Please, can you, ma'am, documentary is good for the storytelling. Like we can understand how the inbuilt of like storytelling from the that part documentary part.
So, see, storytelling is an art, and one of the components of that art is the medium you choose. Some people might want to choose books as a medium, some people might want to choose a podcast as a medium, some people might want to choose a documentary as a medium, both on the receiving end and the giving end. So, if you're a storyteller, you might choose any of the mediums, and if you're somebody who enjoys reading stories, you might want to do either. So, if you're really interested in filmmaking slash documentary making as an art, then it makes sense. It also makes sense if you can get to sort of look at it from an angle of screenplay, from an angle of dialogue writing, from an angle of plot making. So, all the elements of fiction writing will apply to storytelling in the visual sense of it. As far as the time of the or the period or the clothing or the setting and everything goes, again that remains the same. Even when you're writing a book, you have to be doing your editing work thoroughly. You have to make sure that your story is consistent. So for instance, if I were to narrate a story of Delhi in say 1995, these are the pre-metro days. I can't say that it took me an hour to reach from South Delhi to Dilshad Garden. That's practically not possible. But if I set the same story or a similar story in say 2016, that might be possible because now the metro exists. So that accuracy and that ensuring that your story and your time and your characters and everybody are married together is a part of any form of storytelling. As far as documentaries and movies and period drama and everything goes, I don't see that as a bad medium, but I see it as an instant gratification. आपने देखा, आपको instant एक sensation burst मिला. I'm sorry, I just switched to Hindi. Are we comfortable with both the languages, or are we only keeping this strictly English?
Yeah, ma'am, it is English, but you can explain in Hindi also.
So my recommendation about visual is that visual gives you a very different kind of how do I say? It's a very different kind of input. I personally prefer reading and listening more. Between reading and listening, if I have to choose, I choose reading. But that's me. There are people who find visual representation far more meaningful than the written word, and that's also okay. As long as you can capture the essence, capture the message, and capture the style, no matter what medium you choose, it's fine.
Okay, thanks,
Okay.
ma'am. Anybody else have any question?
Uh,
Oh my God, this
Hello,
is such a
ma'am.
lovely batch. You guys don't have questions for me. Hi.
This
I'm
is
sorry.
Kshitij.
Yeah, go on, Chitij.
Ma'am, my question is like storytelling is great for attracting people, but it actually takes some time. But in nowadays, people expect your output in less than a minute. They will judge you in the first moment only. So
Right.
how should we approach to those people?
Okay, question, Kshitij, are you talking about storytelling in a personal setting? Are you talking about storytelling in the sense of somebody who has a job to tell stories? Or are you just generally asking the question in general? Like how you
In
ask it?
in
Is
general,
there a
ma'am, like in a personal setting.
So, so there are a couple of components to great storytelling in the sense of the story ka structure, which I haven't gone into a lot of detail because it becomes slightly technical. There has to be a beginning, there has to be a plot, which develops, there has to be a problem that you're solving. The problem has a solution. And between the problem and the solution, there is some struggle that happens. And then you close it. Now, a good story, a great story, is catchy if the opening is catchy. And when I say the opening is catchy, I don't necessarily mean that the opening has to have a shock value, but the opening has to make you curious about, oh my God, what next? So for instance, if you ask me to introduce myself, I could say, hi everybody, my name is Anupama. I work with the Dalmia Bharat group. I am a storyteller and a content writer. That's one way of it. And 3 sentences into it and you'll be like, oh my God, I don't want to listen to this session. Or I could say, hi everybody, my name is Anupama and I've written 3 books about sexuality. Now you're suddenly sitting in your chair and you want to listen more. Or I might say, hi everybody, my name is Anupama. I'm going to facilitate this session, but I haven't got a presentation for you. So start asking questions. The minute I say start asking questions, you know that you have an opportunity. So 2 things here. How do you cater to this? I am going to repeat myself, practice. Because the more you practice, the more you experiment with different kinds of openings and try them in less risky settings, the better you get at trying them in the riskier settings where you are interviewing or where you have strangers in front of you or where you're reporting to a boss or a teacher or a professor or whatever it is that you're doing. So try it. The second thing that I want to say to you is catchy openings are usually openings which will A, be interesting, and B, will lead to something. So your sentence shouldn't feel like it's going to close here. It should feel like it's an opening to something. So that's the second thing. We also say it has to be a great hook, like we use the term hook for it. So that's there. So for instance, I could say there was a girl sitting in the garden and she was wondering about the time she lost her mother. Or I could say, as Rebecca sat on the swing, the memories from her past resurfaced. She knew that she had to take a revenge. Her mother has still died, but you don't know what the revenge is for. So you want to now know what the revenge is about. So you move on to the next paragraph. And then I leave you with a cue there. So you want to move on to the next page. So that cue leaving, that building of things one into the other and always leading the reader into a hook is important. So that comes with practice. But again, you practice once you begin. So start beginning. Like start doing it.
Oh, okay, ma'am. So it's basically 2 things: having a great opening and a opening which indicates the listeners that there's more to the story. So
Yeah.
doing these 2 things will do the job, right?
And if you're talking about personal settings like interviews and getting people interested in your content, then you want to probably try different kinds of openings. You will not know what a great opening looks like unless you try different kinds of openings.
Yes, ma'am.
So experiment with that and you'll discover. Maybe
Yes.
what you guys also want to do is when you read stuff, and so you know what happens is when we read a lot of books, there are things that we like and we say, oh my God, this is really interesting, this is really catchy. It's all right to write something similar to that. It's all right to try and copy it, especially when you're developing your skill. Like even to this date, there are poets and writers that seasoned writers read and they try to imitate it. And once they've done that, they just leave it aside. They don't copy the whole thing, but it stays in your subconscious and it comes back at the right point, and then a mix and match will help you find style. So my only so rather it's 3 things, Kshitij. So one is great opening, which should lead to something. 2 is experiment with different kinds, and C is it's all right to copy the style as long as the content and the message is your own.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have another very childish question. I always thought like to what kind of person our storytelling will work. Like if I take for example Bill Gates or Elon Musk, will our storytelling also work on them who are thinking with all their brains out? So
Storytelling works on everybody. The question is what kind of story will work with Elon Musk and what kind of story will work with you and what kind of story will work with me. So what you want to probably figure out is what kind, but the story will always work. So this is something I learned when I was working on a project with the Gates Foundation. So I was working with an agency, and they had BMGF as their client. Now we were researching something on women's issues, and eventually what went out from our table was a research report, but the research report told a story. It told the story about what were women facing, what were the issues that were being talked about, what was the impact, what were the initiatives that were being run, who was running those initiatives. It was a story. The question is, what sense did it make to the client? If the client can figure out where to invest his money, then he's interested. If the client can figure out what new technology to explore, he's interested. If the client can figure out the number of people that he's impacted, he's interested. So this doesn't necessarily apply to Mr. Gates or Elon Musk or whoever. This applies to any sort of business storytelling. So if you're telling a story for a business, you got to figure out what are the data points, what is the messaging that is going to interest people, and how to put that messaging in an interesting way. But the storytelling as an art, everybody loves a good story. Their stories might be different. Your story or my story might be like, I really get moved by emotional stories. But what I write for my clients and what I write for work is all professional and business stories. Stories where we crunch numbers, stories where we have like these long Excel sheets which we sort of, churn out charts for. So storytelling, okay, so my answer to your one-line answer to your question, it works for everybody.
Yes, ma'am. I got the answer and a new perspective as well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Ma'am,
What's the next? Yeah.
as you said in the previous question, you have answered that beginning and reader should feel that he should go ahead. But this is okay for fiction, ma'am. In non-fiction, where we have to present something knowledgeable, how can we
Even
attract the
there,
reader?
so let's take the same example, okay? When I talked about this women's project, right? So if I open it by saying X number of women die every day in India because of the lack of basic health. Here is the data that presents it. Here are the 10 things that I studied. Here is what the reports say. Here is what Ayushman Bharat data says. So you're building the same. So one thing is leading to the next. That's for you to. So what you're asking is a language question again, in the sense that your language has to be framed in a manner that it marries the next section. So okay, so let's look at fiction. What does fiction do? I could give you 10 different stories. I could say, oh, there was this guy who fell in love with this girl. There was this father who didn't like them. There was this villain. There was this second guy who really wanted this girl and who wanted to beat this first person up. But they persevered. So this but and however and also, these are what are connecting these independent smaller stories to make a larger piece of fiction, and the same applies to non-fiction. So you have segments of non-fiction, you have segments of data, you have segments of findings, and you weave them together in a manner that one thing. So the logic. So this is also a logic question, in a way. So when you're weaving a story, there has to be a logical sequence to things, and this logic may be expected or unexpected. If it's going to be expected logic, the reader is already expecting this, then it's going to be a good story. If the reader is not expecting and you end up surprising them, then it's going to be a great story. But there has to be some logical sequence to it. So there is a method to the whole madness. Was I able to answer your question, Achita?
Yes, ma'am. I got it.
All right. Who goes next? Guys, we have only 40 minutes in the session. I thought you guys would have questions.
Someone have any question can ask.
So tell me, okay, so let me ask you something. What kind of stories, are you guys all studying technology, or are there also management people in this group right now? How is this group designed?
Most of us are from BTech and IDD, so all tech people.
All technical people. And And did you have a brush with the need to write stories so far in terms of, I don't know, your assignments or your interviews, or have you had a need so far?
No, ma'am, not exactly, but it has been a kind of buzzword and something very trendy. So we all want to know more about it.
So do you think interviews need you to tell stories?
Uh, Not exactly, ma'am. Like it is more like marketing ourselves over there. But many of us are willing to start some startups, and also sometimes we feel that an add-on skill will actually help us in achieving our goals.
Okay, so I'll slightly disagree. All interviews are about telling stories. When I ask a question like, tell me about yourself, Kshitish, tell me about yourself, Anand, I'm actually asking you to tell a story. I'm asking you to tell the story of your life. I'm asking you to tell one of these stories, which may be just your professional or your academic story. But that's what I'm actually effectively asking you.
Yes, ma'am.
If I tell you, so tell me, why do you want to join my company? A company, B company, whichever, XYZ. I'm actually asking you to tell me a story based on some of the research that you may have done with my company, about my company, some of the insights that you have about who you are as a potential professional, as a student, as an academic, trained technical person. And then I want you to weave them together. I'm still asking for a story. If I ask you, why should I hire you? This is still a story. And then more stories will come up once you start telling me yourself. So if somebody says, oh, I'm from a remote village in Odisha, and I've landed up here, and I want to apply for this job, I'll be like, oh, okay, so what inspired you to come to an IIT? What inspired you to write? Because you are saying that you're from a remote village in Odisha. It's still a story. So as much as you guys might want to think that it's marketing, the fact is it's all stories. The stories have to be authentic. The stories have to be accurate, factually. You can't fudge data. You can't lie about yourself. You can't lie about your qualifications or your percentages or anything else. But it's still a story.
Yes, ma'am. I got your point. Like it's all storytelling, and rest are its subdomains.
As far as the businesses go, some of the great stories that make for it is: one, why did you want to get into it? Two, what is the problem you're solving? Three, how is it going to impact other people's lives? Because if it doesn't impact my life, if your story doesn't change my life, I'm not interested in it. And if you look at all great stories, they will always have something that the reader or the listener or the viewer or the watcher can take from it. I think Eva has raised her hand. Yes, Eva, please go ahead.
I just want to know how to answer those questions. Like you're saying, those are also storytelling in interviews. If someone asks, tell about yourself, then I've always heard from seniors that they always say, don't exaggerate, don't say a story. They always say, don't say a story. So
Okay.
what things we should say to them?
So I'm not asking you to exaggerate. Okay, Eva, tell me about yourself.
Okay, my name is Ira Sahu. I study in ITVHU, and I have worked in several teams in the clubs, in various clubs like in dance club and councils like student service council and many more.
Okay.
And something like this. Okay.
All right. Now, apart from this, what all have you done in your life?
I currently study about languages, computer languages like C++, and I have also studied some Python codes also, and I'm preparing for competitive programming for on-campus and also off-campus placements and currently internships, and I'll prepare for placements next year.
Okay. So that makes for your story. It's still a story. You just needed me to prompt you. You stopped because you thought that you were not supposed to speak for more. Let me put it this way. So Eva is not just an IIT PHU student. she's also a person, she's also a daughter, she's also a friend. And while she doesn't have to talk about all of that together in the first question itself, she can always begin with say, and honestly, मेरे से अगर पूछोगे तो if you tell me, hi, my name is Eva Sahu, I'm like, I'm not interested. I have your CV in my hand. I can see your name. Right. So maybe what you want to tell me is, hi, I'm Eva. I already know you from IIT BHU. अगर मैं तुम्हारे campus में placement करने के लिए आई हूँ तो. So you might just want to talk more about your branch and what made you choose that branch, apart from the fact that you had a certain mark and because of that mark you got allocated something. उसके अलावा भी तो कुछ तो interest होगा. कुछ चीजें ऐसी भी होंगी जो discover की होंगी while you're doing your BTech. This is what excites me, and I'm excited about this interview because I think I'm going to learn a lot from it. So if I were to interview with someone, I would say, hi, my name is Anupama. Okay, because we are using that. My name is Anupama. I work as a content developer and content creator. The thing that excites me most about my role is that it gives me a lot of option to explore different industries. And why I think I'm excited and interested about this interview is because I will get to experiment with a new industry, assuming it's a new industry that I'm just giving an example right now. Now, this is not factually inaccurate. मैंने कोई लंबी चौड़ी बढ़ा के बातें नहीं की हैं. I haven't exaggerated. I've simply put a little bit of tadka into it. I'm still eating the basic dal chawal. I'm not feeding you biryani. It's still dal chawal, but it's dal chawal with a bit of tadka.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
I'm not asking you to serve them a 7-course meal. उनको दाल चावल ही दो, लेकिन दाल चावल थोड़े से तड़के के साथ दो so that it doesn't taste entirely bland. And that is what is also going to make you stand out in comparison of other candidates for that matter. Or if you're a startup person and you want to go for a funding, are you going to say, hi, my name is this and this is my co-founder, this and this, and here is a business? No, I would rather begin with my problem. X million people suffer from this problem. My solution, if we can make this solution accessible to people at Y price point, Z million people will have a better quality of life. Then they can ask me whatever questions they want to ask me. And those 2 lines are my great opening to the story that I'm going to ask. I hope I was able to answer some of what you were asking, yeah. Jatin, hi.
Hello, ma'am. My question is that while talking about a topic like the failures of government in handling the COVID situation, what elements of storytelling I can add to it?
So first, see guys, whenever you're writing a non-fiction story, when I say a non-fiction story, basically I'm saying that whenever you're not writing a fantasy fiction or a romance or something like, right? If you're doing a journalistic story, if you're doing a research report, if you're doing storytelling based for business, the first fundamental is please know your facts. So when you say the failures of government in managing the pandemic, identify what you want to classify as a failure. Dive deep. It's one thing to say ki, the hospital infrastructure fell apart. It's one thing to say, oh, we are short of doctors, oh, we are short of vaccines. But it's also important to deep dive and say people are getting affected in terms of their mental health and we don't have sufficient mental health professionals to deal with it. It's also important to say there are families, a lot of them, and you'll have to crunch some numbers, you will have to research some secondary data and say there are lots of families where both mother and the father have died and the children are entirely left with nobody to take care of them. You also have to look into it and say that this is a potential, there is a potential scope for child trafficking now that these children are without parents. So what can be done to do? So what is the government do? And then you say, okay, so the failure is not just at the hospital level, the failure is not just at the vaccine level or the medicine level or the price level or the migrants level, but the failure is also, so you have to first classify what a failure is. Next, you have to look at what is the role of the government in it. What could have the government done? So in a good story, you always leave with a solution. You never just question, because just questioning is what opposition does. But constructive opposition will always also give you a solution to it. So you also have to be able to and willing to research enough to get those solutions on board, and that is what is made for a good story told in the non-fiction sense of it. I don't know if that answers all your question. Do you have a follow-up question, Jatin?
No, no, ma'am. It answered my question. Thank you.
Well, is there anybody else who has a question?
Ma'am, I have one more question, and that is related to the way storytelling will evolve. Like 2 years back, also you would have given a lot of stories at a lot of platforms, offline platforms, but now all the things have shifted online, and the trend is likely to remain the same. So, do you think have you felt any sort of change in the way you were doing it then and the way you are doing it now?
See, so when it comes to work, one of the things that I've realized is that people want shorter stories now. The attention span is shorter. My feeling is that this might change for good or bad depending on how the pandemic situation turns out and how people's entertainment needs shift. But that is one. Two, people need more stories, but that's because they need shorter stories. So instead of reading a novel, because now I'm reading 3 pages, I need 10 3 pages instead of reading a 30 pager. So the number and the volume has to go high. However, because a lot more people are telling stories as compared to before, say 10 years ago or 5 years ago, your stories really have to be impactful in order to stand out. On an average, when I go through my LinkedIn feed, I look at least 10 to 20 interesting pieces, interesting posts, each of which tells me either a story or a message or something. I don't have the time to engage with all of them. There is something that's going to catch my fancy there, and I'm only going to spend my time on that. So you really have to make sure that your quality stands out. And what year are you guys in? First, second, third? What is this general batch here?
Mostly, ma'am, first and second year, right? I am from second year.
You still have time, guys.
Yeah,
You still have.
yeah.
So if you can practice, if you can sort of figure this bit out in the next two. So, okay. So giving a timeline, if you can practice your art for half an hour to 1 hour on a daily basis, 6 months, you'll be able to do it with less effort if you've never done it before, assuming you've never done it before, if you're starting from scratch. 1 year, you'll be able to do it good enough. 2 years, you'll have sort of reached a place where you can actually do it professionally. Whether for your own business or whether for a workplace, that's a different story. But so I would still suggest that you guys have time. Just give yourselves half an hour every day. Fix an hour, whether before you sleep, whether the first thing you wake up in the morning, depending on how your schedules allow you. But if you start putting in that now, you'll be ready to do it. The trends, so trends wise, more stories, impactful stories, and short stories will stand out. Longer stories will, it'll depend on the kind of story you're giving. So longer stories will be more interesting to business people. General masses के लिए अगर B2C लिखना है तो shorter stories.
I got your point, ma'am, and that definitely adds a very new and obvious angle that our attention span is decreasing, and
Yeah.
I felt it myself. So definitely, to gain the attention, we need to come up with something more
See,
more interesting.
Also the thing is, even if you look at your like yourselves, right? So you studying probably, I'm assuming at least 10 to 12, 14 hours a day, and you got enough non-fiction to study for yourself. You don't want to be adding another 500-page volume to it to read fiction, yeah. Because so there's reading for information, there's reading for entertainment, and there's reading just because you love reading. So the third kind of people actually end up reading everything. उनको चाट के खोमचे को पेपर में खोमचे वाला जो पेपर देगा, they'll read that newspaper का bit also. But we are not talking of that kind of storytelling and that kind of reading. We are talking of the reading which will make sense in terms of either the data or entertainment. So entertainment wise, it will be shorter. Data wise, it needs to be, you really need to dive deep. Also, one of the things that it changes with the whole AI and the data and sciences and all of this coming into picture, it's going to be a leveler. Because if you have the same algorithms and the same tools to crunch your numbers that I have, then you have to bring in a fresh perspective so that your data gives you your story gives me a different kind of insight than my own. Because अगर सिर्फ number crunch करना है, तो you and I can do it equally well using the same tools. So there has to be something that will differentiate your insights from mine. And if you can't create that differentiator, then it's all average stories. All the stories are good and all the stories are average. McDonald's के सारे burger एक जैसे होते हैं ना. None of them is something interesting. Yeah, Eva.
How communication skill and storytelling skill are interconnected, or does they go hand in hand, or they are totally different?
They're not totally different. I would classify storytelling as one of the forms of communication. A lot of people might not be able to tell stories, but they might still be able to communicate. I would actually like to look at storytelling as an enhanced form of communication, but it's more like an art. It's not really. So there are various ways of communicating. Storytelling is one of them. But it's also in a way the essence of it, because unless there's a story, what are you going to communicate? There has to be a message, right? Otherwise, what is left is just the transactional communication of, here are the instructions, please do this, please can you give me that, and here is the money, here is the work. But that's not what there is to human life in general in terms of communication.
So if you have to convince anyone for anything, any message or anything, if you are approaching someone new and you want to convince, like I'm in a marketing team, assume if I'm in a marketing run and I'm approaching a team or a big company, and how I'll tell my story is more important, how I'll communicate about the thing that I'm trying to catch their attention to is more important.
They're one and the same thing. They're not really different from each other.
Okay.
See, here is what is important is, one, what will you tell them, and two, why will you tell it to them, and three, how are you? These are the three components. What are you saying? Why are you saying it? Or why should they listen to you? And how are you saying it? So for instance, if you were in the marketing team and you wanted to sell an event to say 10 different speakers, why are you reaching out to those speakers? Why should they come as a guest to you and not go somewhere else? And why will I read your message in the first place? Because of how it's written. So if you send me a message written in very shoddy English, I'll probably not even look at it. I'll be like, I'm not interested. But if you send me a well-drafted message, then even though it may not be a great story, it will be a productive story. It will give you the result. So, okay, guys, this is one more thing, okay? Not all stories have to be great stories. One of the common misconceptions is, oh, my story is not great. It's not good enough. No, if it fulfills the purpose that it's meant to do, it's good enough. So there'll be stories which are great art, and there'll be stories which have a message, which deliver the message, which get the business done. Both are equally important. So don't trash your work just because it's not Orhan Pamuk level, or just because it's not Arundhati Roy level. Yes, Achyuta.
Ma'am, in arts, like in not in like general job, software job like that, art need a very kind of expertise when you want to take it as a profession. Like I want to give you some insights on how can one take storytelling as a profession.
So I'll tell you what happened. So I was not a content person till 5 years ago. 2016, I was in a management job. I was in a management job for a tech startup, and and it was a very different kind of setting where I used to work. But once these books happened, the next thing that happened, the next thing I knew, I was able to put them on my CV. The minute I did that, my boss, my then client, the firm that I was working with, came to me and they said, we want you to redesign our website and rewrite the website. Fair point. Added one more thing on the writing side of it. The next thing I know, I took up a freelance assignment on the side. So this is something that we call portfolio building. And you have to build your portfolio over time, slowly and gradually. You start taking up smaller pieces, you start getting paid for them, and then you start adding them to your CV. And then you gradually keep moving to larger assignments. So before I even knew, and the first set of, and honestly, like if you ask me, my first set of clients were friends, family, and fools. Friends because they believed in me, family because they're family, and fools because they didn't know what they were getting into. But I made sure that I delivered to each one of them with the same integrity. And once you do that, so then that becomes your business running thing. How do you develop it into a career? You start writing. That's the first condition. You start making people read. You start creating stuff that people want to read. Whether it's professional, whether it's personal. So for instance, I write more on Facebook rather than LinkedIn because that's where my primary audience is. I prefer writing for B2C people. But now that we've done this session, if you guys were to come to me, so a lot of times what will happen is opportunities will not come to you in the form that you may want. They may not come to you in the form of come become a content writer for us. They may not add great value, but they may come to you in the form of hey Achita, can you come and speak at our event? And when you go there, somebody might walk up to you and say, can you mentor me into this? Can you give me a proper, could you sort of edit my work? There will be CEOs that will come and say, I want to write a book. Can you do ghost writing for me? Can you edit my work? Can you rewrite my work? There'll be PR firms and agencies where you might want to freelance. You may want to work for publishing houses. The fact is, you will still have to hone your art. No matter where you go, whether you publish for yourself, whether you publish through the mainstream industry, like I did not go to any mainstream publisher. But the fact is that today I earn more than most of my peers do. And I don't do anything but just content. So all I'm saying is it's possible. It needs a strategic vision. It needs constant perfection of art, and it needs good tactical decisions, just like any other business does.
Yeah, ma'am. So ma'am, we are done with the time, ma'am, and you directly explained all the things, and like especially what we that we enjoy, and it will help us in the future. That how storytelling in the our resume or intern or jobs. So it is very good session. So if anyone has a last question, we can take.
Yeah,
Any short
let's take the last one or two questions if somebody has anything. Yep, Jatin.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, what is the process? I wanted to ask about the process of writing a book from. Okay, yeah.
Go on, Tom. No, I was just trying to breathe. I wasn't trying to speak. Go on.
From the idea is in the author's mind and till when the book is in the reader's hand.
So, okay, this applies not just to a book, but to any piece of writing that you're doing. The first thing you do is you put the raw idea down. I usually keep a notepad in my purse all the time because I keep getting ideas left, right, and center, and I don't want to miss out on them, and I don't know which will come handy when. So, if you really want to take writing seriously or storytelling in general in any form of medium seriously, then one is keep capturing ideas. Two, once you finalize that this is the idea that I want to work on, the second thing you do is you jot that down. You try and elaborate it as much as possible, but not by writing it, simply by adding, say, words to it. So, for instance, if I wanted to write, so I know I want to write a romantic novel. That's the first level. Then I say I want to write a romantic novel set in semi-rural India. Then I say I want to write a steamy romantic novel set in semi-rural India where the two protagonists are girls. So now it no longer becomes a romantic novel. Now it's become an LGBTQ novel, or where the two protagonists are boys. So now it's become a queer novel also. And you gradually expand in this statement till you come to a point where you say, okay, this one liner explains my idea clearly. That's the first step. The second thing you do is you list down how many characters do you want. My suggestion to new writers is keep your characters limited. It helps you to create less loose ends towards the end of the book. 3, you figure out your setting and your plot, and then you chapterize. You say, here are the 10 chapters. So ideally, if I were writing an ebook, a typical good ebook would have a 60 page. Now 60 pages means if it's 6 pages per chapter, which is like broadly 3000 words per chapter, 2000 to 3000 words per chapter, that will be 10 chapters. Now I have to finish from this one line of queer romance set in semi-urban India to the point that it becomes like these 10 chapters. So I break it down. I say, okay, chapter 1, I introduce my characters. Chapter 2, I introduce the romance. Chapter 3, I introduce the villain. Chapter 4, I work on the development of this whole situation where the villain or the circumstances or whatever it is that is affecting their romance. Chapter 5, I work on the solution. Chapter 6, a friend steps in to help them out. Chapter 7, they fight their legal battle. Chapter 8, their families agree. Chapter 9 or 10 or whatever, they get together happily ever after. Or I may not want to give them a happily ever after, and I might say chapter 9, unexpected surprise developments. Chapter 10, the protagonists die, depending on whatever your novel is. So the next thing you do is this chapterization. Once you've done the chapterization, you do internal, what we call as the beat creation. हर chapter के बीच में you say, here are the 5 highlights I want to write in this chapter. Once you've done, and that's when you sit down and write. Once it's written, you put it aside for 15 days, please. Then you fix the errors. You don't rewrite. Editing has a challenge. Editing your work has a pitfall. The pitfall is that you get tempted to rewrite the whole work. Please don't do it. Just fix the errors, grammar as well as factual. अजमेर की बात अगर करोगे या जयपुर की बात अगर करोगे तो you can't have a Lal Killa in Jaipur. And there'll be times when this will happen while you're writing because you'll be thinking of something and you'll be writing somewhere else. So fix those errors, then you give it to an editor to edit, and then you see where it goes. That's when your book sort of takes a shape to be called a book, if you know what I mean. Did that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the reply.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a very great session, ma'am. That like many good insights comes to our thoughts, like what we do in our future and how do we start. So, Chitish bhaiya, is over to you.
Guys, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask me questions on LinkedIn. That's absolutely okay. I understand that you may have afterthoughts and follow-up questions. Also, honestly, 1 hour isn't entirely sufficient, but I'm glad that, I was able to sort of give you some insights.
Ma'am, can you give your ID on short? LinkedIn ID.
LinkedIn ID. Eva, will you be able to share with them? Or Kshitish, maybe?
Yeah, I'll share with them.
We'll do that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, it was actually not some insights. It was actually too much for us, and really, this was a great session. Means we did not expect this much, but it was much more than our expectations. And we really liked the way you took the session forward without any presentation. It was complete storytelling throughout, especially the examples you took in between. Like Ajmer and Ajmer and Jaipur mein Lal Killa. So these were all very good, which were explaining us the small things which he wanted to explain. So for this thank you note, actually whosoever comes to IIT BHU for any guest lecture, we present them with a memento. So somehow this is not a setting. Like this is not an offline setting. I think you can see the screen.
I do, yes.
I just saw. Okay, it's a different. Just give me a second. Like
Sure.
it's a mistake. These kind of technical glitches which make our like online setups even more interesting.
Interesting, right? Yeah. Yeah. How do I put something in the chat? I'm just trying to.
There will be a chat section on the
Yeah.
top right.
Yeah. Anand has
Yes.
link. I was.
Yes, ma'am. I think now you can see this.
Yes, I can.
So this is a small pictorial representation of the ghats of Varanasi and our culture as well. So this is a memento which we give to our guest speakers for delivering these great sessions. So this is from our side. Maybe Ira will also mail it to you.
Yeah. That sounds sweet, guys. I am glad that you guys had me. I'm happy to be with you. And if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Please don't think too much. Feel free to drop me a line. Feel free to ask me questions. And thank you, Eva. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kshitij, Anand.
Also, like I have put up the feedback form in the chat section, so you all can fill the feedback form. That will be really helpful for us to improve. And one more thing is left, that is to explain about Speak Up, because it is actually initiative by SCS, because in offline we do get to interact a lot, but in online that interaction has reduced a bit, especially for first year rights who gave their JE and they just got onto this online setup. So this gives us chance to speak among ourselves, to discuss on various topics. So we are actually trying to improve our communication skills. So either through moderation, like we give chances to first year rights, and all through asking questions, we are doing bit by bit. So like you all can be a part of it. So this was it, ma'am. Thank you for your
Awesome.
time.
Thank you, guys. I will take your leave now and have fun exploring more things. Bye.
Yes, ma'am.
All the best.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.